You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk is brought to you by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com and sign up for free webinars and online events today. Hello, and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris, and as you guys know, I am a productivity and ADHD coach, and I help overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, more energy, and more bandwidth for the things that matter most to them. As many of you know, I am a woman with ADHD myself, so I have been where my clients are, and I've come out that other side, so to speak. So I've gone from living in the constant state of chaos and overwhelm and underperformance that so many of us who are adults with ADHD find ourselves in far too often to live a life of more success and fulfillment than I once dreamed was possible. And I honestly, to the very core of my being, believe every single one of you can share your own version of success yourselves. You can learn more about me and what I do and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And if you text the keyword hack to 33777, I'll send you my 7 foolproof productivity hacks to help you add hours of free time to your weeks by investing just a few smart minutes each day. You recognize it that way or not, we're going to talk about grief. So welcome to the program, Colleen and Dena. I'm so glad to have you join us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm excited to have you guys here. Tell our listeners a little bit about you, introduce yourselves, what you do, and then we'll get into the the whole how you connected and kind of go down the grief path.
I'll start. My name is Dena Betti, and I'm the executive director of the Her Smile nonprofit. I come together with Colleen to create iSoulify, which is a wellness company for women, and we'll share more about what that is coming up, but I will keep it short and turn it over to Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen Gianatiempo, and I come together with Dena in our podcast and our wellness company, iSoulify. But on the side, I have my own fine art business where I teach people how to be more creative.
Awesome. So tell our listeners a little bit about how you guys connected. I was on Colleen and Dena's podcast a while back, with my ADD sense of time. It's somewhere between 2 months and 2 years ago. I'm not really sure exactly where, somewhere in there. And you can find it on the iSoulify podcast. I really, really enjoyed connecting with you guys. But what I didn't know going in is that we have some things in common that were unexpected. And I really felt like I connected with you guys personally over some things, grief and tragedy, and some things that probably a lot of people have dealt with in the past. Really can be, to say like life-changing is such an understatement. That's there really aren't. It absolutely changes who you are and who you become and where your life goes and all of that. And just most listeners don't know, and I think probably most people who know me professionally don't know, that when I was a teenager, 17, I was in a car accident with my dad and one of my sisters, my sister Pam. And both my dad and my sister were killed, and I was severely injured. I had major head trauma, brain bleeds, and I was in a coma for, I don't actually know exactly how long. I never remember that, which is kind of funny after all these years. I broke all the ribs in my body. I broke my pelvis in many places, but I was in really rough shape physically. But as I recovered physically, then dealing with the tragedy of such a sudden loss of, such close family members really does change your life. It changes who you are. It absolutely has a lot to do now that I'm an adult and I can kind of look back on it differently. It changed how I see life. And it definitely has an every single day of my life impact on how I choose to look at things. So I am 55. I just turned 55 in December. And so, of course, when you hit your early 50s and then some, like your body starts to change, right? Wrinkles appear, literally, you wake up in the morning and you swear that wasn't there yesterday. Skin tone changes, gravity takes, all of these things happen. And yes, I they bother me, but I really honestly, and I mean this sincerely, I believe that that's a gift. It's a gift that it's an honor to be 55. It's a gift that many people never get to experience. You know, my sister Pam was only 21 when she passed. My dad was only 42. Neither of them got to see 50. Neither of them got to see 55. Neither of them really got to see wrinkles and saggy skin and droopy boobs and all that fun stuff and hot flash, you know. So I really believe that. I really feel that way. That's not just me blowing sunshine up your skirt. I mean, that's really an important part of how I live my life, is trying to see the upside in as much of life as I can. You know, my friends and my family often tease me, you know, there goes Lynn making lemonade again. You know, I really do try to make something positive out of negative experiences. And I think if I didn't, I would be in a rubber room somewhere with a really long sleeve jacket. So tell us a little bit, Colleen and Dena, tell our listeners a little bit about how you guys really connected and what brought you together.
Okay. Well, first I want to start off and say I can identify with everything that you just said. And again, this is Dena. I'll start off and say Colleen and I met in like a very simple way. We met through our kids' elementary school, and we were always close friends, and we would run into each other every year at the dinner dance auction at the elementary school. And we found pure joy in each other's presence. We were never like in each other's first circle though. And our kids were in the same grade. Our oldest kids were in the same grade. So we had this joy when our paths did cross. There was joy there, and I always enjoyed my time with Colleen. And then fast forward to the time when our kids were in 8th grade, and it was a Sunday, and my daughter asked to take a walk. And I used to joke with my husband, like, we have to let the kids go and explore a little bit, or we're going to have 40-year-olds living in our home one day, right? So Jenna was my oldest daughter's name, and she was 14 at the time, and she asked to take a walk around our neighborhood, and we said yes. And, you know, a half hour or so passed by, and texting was just, you know, available to them at that time. And we texted her, how's it going? And she said, we're headed back. And I then said, okay, well, I was headed out with the puppy who was 4 months old. So literally my daughter and I were in the neighborhood at the same time, but I never saw her. And the next call I received was from my husband. It was this frantic call that I'll never forget, awful call. And he told me it was Jenna, and to come to this scene of this accident. And I thought it was an accident. And then I saw when I arrived there that my daughter not only was in an accident, but she was tragically killed at that time. So she was a block and a half from our home. So I tell you that backdrop because that did change my life. And it also changed very much the impact my friends, family, and community had in my life. And I know, Lynn, we've talked about that, and it's powerful.
Yes.
It's very, very powerful. And one of those people who came into my life right away was Colleen, in the form of food to our family, support, love, and everything beautiful a human being can do for another. Colleen was that person for me. And months went by after Jenna's passing, and I put this post on Facebook. It was to the universe. I don't know, you know, you do weird things like when you're grieving.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't make sense, but you do things like that, what I'm about to say. And I put this post out. Who I was talking to was the universe, but I put it on Facebook, which is so weird. And I said, you know, how can I honor you the rest of my days? And Colleen answered that post as if a gift from God. And she said 2 words. She said, a mural. And we came, it brings tears to my eyes. And we didn't skip a beat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were just like, yes, let's do it. And that brought us, really thrust us together for this 18-month approval process to get it approved in the city. And then you can share the next part.
The next part was really magic because the city, it was a city walls. And so we had to go through this crazy approval process, but it was really fun going to all these city council meetings and navigating all that red tape. But what happened was once we got approval and we started working on the mural, this amazing healing happened. And we didn't really anticipate this, but what it became, it's not a wailing wall by any means. It because it's one of the happiest murals you'll ever see. It has it's covered in hearts and positive imagery, reminding people of their loved ones. But what happened was people would come to paint and volunteer, and they would be healed through this process of expression. I can't tell you how many people I hugged and rubbed their backs while they cried. And then they just said they were changed after that experience. So it became this amazing experience that Dena and I shared together. We helped so many people through this mural. And then it just became very clear about what I do is I'm an artist, and that I can help so many people get in touch where words are, that you can't find words for how you feel. Yeah. So yes.
It's beautiful. And guys, I should have thought of this before we started recording, but please send me a picture of the mural. I would love to put it on the Facebook page. I mean, I know even after the act of creating the mural ends, the healing still continues, right? And it's one of the things that struck me, and I'm going to apologize because I'm going to get all verklempt about this. One of the things that really struck me, and I think it's an easy thing to not see right now in the world as it is today, being, February, whatever it is, February 19th, 2021, there's a lot of crap going on with the pandemic. In the US, politics is just, everything is just, there's a lot of ugliness, right? But when there is a trauma or a tragedy, and a community comes together to support you, there is nothing else in the world like seeing the good in people. It really can bring the best out of people. I remember my mom tells stories because I was still in a coma after all of, after the accident, and after, everyone was bringing food and restaurants were donating and neighbors were bringing things. And my mom talks about our one neighbor who has since passed, who was a really good friend of ours. I used to babysit their kids. And if you could picture, he's this like very, sort of manly, dark hair, kind of, muscular guy. Her coming home from, visiting me and dealing with all of these funeral arrangements and awful things, to find, our neighbor, Bob, in an apron, cleaning her kitchen and vacuuming her floor, right? I mean, it's those things, it's so hard when you are, and even though I've been through this myself, it's so hard when you are the person wanting to help the person who is struggling to know what to do. But really just knowing that someone is there to listen, someone is there, to kind of lift you up and hold you up and help you remember that you're not alone is really powerful.
And I want to add to that, because for me, going through that experience, because I was in your mom's shoes, as I was very conscious that if I didn't let the Bobs of the world come into my home, if I had shut my door, that they might not come back. And then I knew that there was this reciprocation going on, that I was allowing people to give to me. I was allowing them to give, and through that grieving process that they were doing, that I could be a receptacle for them too. That it was a two-way street. And I really hope that your audience hears that, is because allowing people in is a gift to you, and it's a gift to them.
It is. And this is something, Colleen, that's a huge point, right? Dena, it's a huge point, because kind of thinking about, our ADHD peeps, right? Thinking about my ADHD clients and our ADHD population, one of the things I hear a lot, and this is something that I, in some ways, still struggle with and have to really keep an eye on, is letting people help me and asking for help, right? When you ask for help or you receive help, it's not just about you. You're allowing the other person to do something that obviously feels good for them. But generally, when people offer help, they're offering something that is for them a strength, whether it's just to listen or whether it's to create a mural, right? I mean, you're allowing that other person to use their gifts and their talents to do something good. And there is nothing that really feels better than to help someone.
I have a little tip for your audience and grief, if you don't mind if I talk a little bit about the creative process. So I too have, I'm undiagnosed ADHD, but I know that I have a lot of the attributes, and I try to use them as gifts, right? I see it as a gift. And so one of the things that you can do if you're experiencing grief during this time of COVID, maybe you lost a job, or maybe you had to move or change your lifestyle in some way and you're grieving your old ways, something that you can do, and it's very powerful. And I just learned about this, is draw who you want to be, but draw it with your non-dominant hand. And what this does is it taps into the healing part of you that's in your subconscious, because only you can soothe yourself, right?
Yeah.
Some of us go to alcohol and drugs and addiction,
other unhealthy, right?
Unhealthy things. This is really powerful. I've always been drawing with my dominant hand, but I just learned this through a book that I read on trying to help people heal. So draw a picture of how you're feeling. It can be, it's a stick figure, and just write your feelings surrounding it. You know, you're grieving, you're sad, you're crying, whatever. And then redraw how you want to feel and how, you know, in the future or even tomorrow or today. I want to be happy. I want to remember whoever was lost, or I want to remember my old job, or whatever it is. It's a super, super simple exercises. It sounds kind of silly, but I can't even tell you the power in it.
Sometimes it is those simple things that are the most meaningful, right? For a lot of reasons. For one thing, with a lot of us with ADHD, we don't force ourselves to stop and feel what we're feeling and accept what we're feeling. A lot of us have the tendency to kind of push harder, pedal faster, I always call it. So just the pause and the conscious acknowledgement of what you're dealing with is really important. And you brought up a really good point. We are dealing with everyone, I think maybe at any time, but especially right now, so many of us are grieving something, whether it's a lost job, whether it's being separated from the people that we love and our support, our support structure or community, whether it's just, family members that you can't be with because you want to keep them safe or keep yourself safe, whether it's lost outlets, right? So many of us, and I see this a lot with my clients, the things that we did that were like recharging, refreshing outlets for us, a lot of them are gone. And for a lot of us, that really, it's difficult from a mental health perspective. I mean, depression and mood disorders are on the rise dramatically. Substance abuse is on the rise dramatically. This is a really difficult time. Even if you're not dealing with the loss of a loved one, we're all dealing with the loss of something. Right? Even if you or someone that felt peace from, and it really helped to kind of feed your soul and recharge by engaging in some spiritual activity in your community, going to church, going to synagogue, Bible studies, worship services, doing those things in person, it has a very different impact than doing those things virtually and on Zoom. And this is not easy, guys. Even just going out, right? Live music is a huge part of my life and always has been. That's gone. It's gone in any way that I feel safe doing it. There are still places we could find around here, but I'm not comfortable going and sitting in a restaurant inside right now. And I also sing. So that is gone. That's been gone for almost a year now. There are a lot of these things that we do have to grieve, and we can't just stuff them down, right? It's kind of like whack-a-mole. If you stuff it down and you don't acknowledge it, it's going to pop up somewhere else, right?
One of the things that I want to point out about Dena as being her best friend is that she made a choice.
Yeah.
She realized that, her daughter was gone, and she made a choice to live and honor her daughter in a certain way, right?
Right. Yeah, I definitely thank you, Colleen, for saying that. But two things I want to say is that I am the type of person who I've grieved by doing. And there's all different people grieve different ways.
Absolutely.
That was a way that worked for me. But I will say in that, which I highly recommend through this grief of everything that you've outlined, Lynn, that's going on right now is that we do find an outlet. And yes, we do have to be creative. And there is a little bit of stubbornness in human nature that we don't really, we want to dig in our heels and say, no, this isn't the way I wanted my life to work out. No, this isn't what I want to be happening right now.
Right.
When we surrender to what's outside of us, the circumstances, surrender and say, okay, this is my reality right now. Now what? Now what am I going to do? And for me, the second part of what I chose to do is say, my daughter only got to live 14 years. That will be 14 years I will always have as a gift in my life. There is no way that I am going to move on. This is how my brain processed Jenna's death in grief and despair, because that is not how I feel about her. And so really think about yourself and honor yourself, and you deserve to be happy and fulfilled, even though there is crazy circumstances outside of us. And yes, we do have to be creative on how we are going to bring joy into our lives. It will not be the same. It will not be the singing and the concert and the being on stage and expressing your voice right now. But we can be creative. And that is a gift I believe our Creator gave us, is creativity.
Absolutely.
We can figure out other ways to bring joy into our lives. And that we can be stubborn about that, right? It's not the way we want it. But I really encourage people to say, well, what would it look like if I was to choose something and that brought me joy? And then the final thing I want to say is, if anybody is grieving the death of somebody, is to think about how you would honor the rest of the days they didn't get. Like you said in the open, Pam only got to live until she was 21. Your dad only got to live until he was 42. There's some years that they didn't get to live this life, right? That we would think would be a normal longevity. And so how can we celebrate that and bring those years into our lives and to make our life that much more impactful in their honor? Living in somebody's honor is super powerful.
It's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. These are difficult times for a lot of reasons. But that doesn't mean that we can't get through them, right? We do hard things. We've all done hard things all the time, whether or not we give ourselves credit for it, but you can't ignore it. You have to let yourself feel it. Let yourself experience it. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't be grieving whatever it is that you're grieving. And really, do what you can to find positive ways that you can bring some joy into your life, that you can honor, the person or the circumstances that have changed that you have lost. I think that's really great advice. And what else would you want our listeners to know about, just the process of grief and supporting people who are grieving?
Well, I would say that I'll take this, but I want you to say too. So grief to me is definitely an ongoing process. My biggest aha moment that I'd like to share with the audience was about 6 months after Jenna passed away. I thought grief was something that would heal like a broken bone. And when I realized that pain was never going to go away for me, how could it? That I could coexist with pain, and I could have pain and joy simultaneously in my body at the same time. For me, that was a huge, huge awakening within me, because I thought it was one or the other.
Right.
So I would say, and then I love what you just said, Lynn, is acknowledge it, let it come in, let it be there, be with it, and then it will move through you. But resistance is something that just makes it bigger.
And I actually really applaud you for figuring that out so early, because again, I was 17 at the time. It took me years to really be okay with the fact that, that hole is never going to completely close. It's not. And it's been, I'd have to do the math, but it was 1983. So it's been, a lot of years, and it still brings me to tears, and I can still feel it. Sorry, guys. I can still feel it sometimes, like it's just happening now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Right. And it's also something to learn that, and this was hard for my husband, because when we met and were married, I met him a few years after the accident, but he knew we were friends for a while. He knew all about my family and what we had been through, but he had never dealt with or supported someone who had dealt with grief or been through it himself. So for me to learn to tell the people around me that, I know it's uncomfortable when I cry. I know it hurts you to see me hurt, but I'm going to be okay. Just let me be in this moment for a little bit, and I will find my way out of it. And sometimes it takes longer, and sometimes it's a little easier. It does get, I think, easier to pull yourself out of it over time, but it never goes away. It doesn't. I mean, I honestly, something every once in a while will happen, and it really is raw, like it was last week.
And one of the things that I heard you just say too is that, no amount of time passes, it really, you still feel it. One of the suggestions I have for grief, so I lost my sister during painting the mural in a sick way as well. So one of the things that I like to do to help myself and is remembrance, right? Yeah. We all want to forget, because when they come into our mind, we feel grief, right? So remembering and celebrating, telling stories. Maybe that person was made a favorite recipe, and remembering and not forgetting people. I never want people to forget my sister. We don't want people to forget her daughter. So just keep the memories alive. And I tell people that when they lose somebody, and that helps me so much to tell stories about Aunt Lynne.
Yeah, it really does, though. It really does.
It helps so much.
That's amazing. And it really is. It's for us as much as it is for them, or really more than it is for them. But I really appreciate you guys being here. I know this is a heavy topic, but it's an important topic to talk about. And I really appreciate you guys being here. I really appreciate you sharing. I hope everyone has learned something from this. I mean, if you're grieving anything in any way, you are absolutely not alone. And if you want to join us in the ADHD Support Talk community in Facebook, if you have something you want to share or questions or anything, please, we're here and happy to share and happy to support you. Thank you so much, Colleen and Dena. This has been wonderful.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So tell really quick, I almost forgot, tell our listeners where they can learn more about you guys and what you do.
Okay, you can learn more about us on our iSoulify podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at our iSoulify handle. And I want to say final words is, when you are helping somebody in grief, is to let them feel what they feel. That you don't have to fix it. That is my great takeaway for our talk today, is just being able to listen without having to fix.
And that's huge. That is really huge. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Dena. Thank you all for listening. As always, I appreciate your attention, and we'll catch you next time on ADHD Support Talk. Bye-bye.